So here we are at the paddle shop.
Hi, readers. Thanks for joining us. I'm here at the Haliburton Forest paddle shop with Corey, who has graciously custom made 2 paddles for my wife and I. I found him through the Instagram. His Instagram page is h.f paddle shop.
Correct. Yep. Haliburton Forest Paddle Shop, HF Paddle Shop.
Awesome. Thanks. I highly recommend you check him out because, as you can see by the work behind us, just as a sample, and some of the footage that you're going to see in this video, he makes all types of great custom paddles for all kinds of uses, and we're very satisfied with the service and the communication and everything. So he's also graciously agreed to have this interview.
How you doing, Corey?
Doing well, Darren. Thanks for having me.
Thanks very much. So as you can see, I've got 2 of your gorgeous paddles right behind me.
Excellent.
And, in the previous footage, we were just getting introduced to the paddle shop. And right behind you, we can see some gorgeous paddles that you've made. So obviously, it looks like there's some different ones from the previous footage, which is great. So if thanks for your time. We'll just start asking a few questions. And looking forward to hearing what's going on with you and what HF Paddle Shop is going to be doing in the future. Yeah, to start off with, looks like you got some beautiful designs there and different woods. So what's your inspiration in terms of, the different shapes of the paddles that you made and also with the different materials that you're using, the different woods?
Inspiration, honestly, it comes from trying and honestly putting pieces together to see how they work and mesh together. Failing at that and coming up with something that is good to use, hardy, something that is beautiful to look at, but yet still functional, made to be used. Yeah, inspiration comes from many areas for me. Out in nature, seeing what the beautiful landscape can offer out there.
For sure, thanks. And I think that really shows in the different varieties of the wood textures and things that you have there. So I guess if we take a step back, right, like where did HF Paddle Shop begin, or at least begin for you? And what's your background? Do you have a background in woodworking or engineering or something like that? So what's the background with HF Paddle Shop?
Sure. So Haliburton Forest Paddle Shop goes back to 2010. And back then, it was primarily in response to the American beech bark disease that was spreading through our forests. And so they were looking to have an added value product out there that could help use up this resource that they were quickly harvesting to try to reduce the spread, but also have some valuable wood products still there. And so when COVID came about in 2020 in March for the shutdown, the paddle shop wasn't immune to that. And so that maker at that time retired and the paddle shop was up in the air. And so come August, I was contacted and brought by to see what the potential was here, and was told basically I could make it my own to relaunch and get the Haliburton Forest paddle name back out there, offering exceptional customer service, and more importantly, a really solid paddle, piece of outdoor equipment. And so with the relaunch, that happened in October 2020, so only a few months after being shut down. And I haven't looked back or regretted that decision, move in my career whatsoever. It's been absolutely a phenomenal job to be working on. Absolutely love it. And so previously, I was a carpenter and a woodworker and a crafter and a maker for most of my life, and also a paddler and an outdoor enthusiast for most of that same time. And all those skills that I obtained up to this point was easily transferable over to what I was doing here. And I love it. It's constantly learning and growing and seeing about making that perfect paddle.
Yeah, thanks. And you hit on a couple things there, which I find really interesting. Like you were talking about, there's a lot of trial and error, even from the beginning of interview questions that you were talking about. And, you mentioned that perhaps you failed, but then you succeeded. So in terms of the development process, when you get an order or when you're looking to, create a new design, what's the development like? Like, one of the draws, I think that, at least from my perspective, when I was looking at paddles, I wanted something that's kind of a work of art, like on the wall right now, but is also very functional. And I think, your Instagram and the different things that I've seen while I was in the shop really attest to that process. But the thing that drove me to it as well was, concept that's handmade paddles, right? It says, it's popular to go off on the shelf, maybe at Walmart or somewhere, and get, something that was machined. So what's the development process for HF Paddle Shop? Like, is it completely by hand? Do you do any external labor? What kind of machines do you use?
Yeah, everything's done in-house. We've got a pretty nicely closed circuit or circle where our lumber is sustainably harvested within our forests here in Ontario. And Haliburton Forest is lucky enough to own and manage a bunch of these properties around Ontario. And once sustainably harvested, lumber goes to our mills, gets milled up to my specifications, more or less, and kiln dried to that nice 8% perfection of kiln dried wood. And as far as the design process, honestly, right now, the goal is to create original pieces for that custom paddle for customers. And like you, Darren, a lot of other customers put their trust and faith, I guess you could say, into me of what I would create for them functionally, again, something that's going to be used, but yet a beautiful piece that can be displayed and appreciated rest of the year as well.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. And, to kind of echo one of the points that you made there, one of the reasons you would be, I guess, looking towards a shop like yours is you do get that very hands-on customer focused experience. So just for example, for anybody watching the video now, when I first found Corey through the Instagram, there was a lot of questions I had. We started emailing back and forth. I ended up on a phone call at some point, and I had an idea of what I wanted, and I'll just pull out one of these right now as an example. But I had no idea that it would turn out, like this, which is absolutely gorgeous piece of work. But I'm always obviously looking forward to getting it out on the water, very shortly, hopefully. So, it was a lot of consultation between Corey and I. And that's one of the things I appreciated about the experience was, I gave him a rough idea of what I was looking for. So a bench shaft paddle. And I was pretty, I guess, rigid in terms of the degrees that I wanted, like a 12-degree bend. I know you had some other options available, and you worked with me on it to talk about the different wood that could be used. the different blade options, not only the width, but also the construction. So for example, Corey, I see behind you, you've got one that's kind of like a feathered blade. Do you mind maybe talking about that option, which I think is pretty cool? This is, I guess, is a bit more solid. And then you have like different variations that are available for anybody who's interested when you do that consultation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So your blades, your paddles specifically were one of the first ones that left the shop as far as bend shaft paddles. The first one for the prototype I had to try when I knew that you were interested was this here. And you can see the nice feather laminate on there. It has a nice oiled grip, an oiled shaft, but the blade itself has an epoxy resin cover over top of it to help give it that more rugged durability. And then on top of that, there are multiple coats of a clear coat spar varnish. And in this case, it happens to be more of a matte finish rather than shiny, which I like a lot. Brings out a lot of the detail in the wood. With your models, Darren, I believe we did more of a resin tip, or even more perimeter wise, to make it a little bit more sort of expedition style. And then on top of that, I put a 2-ounce fiberglass on your blades as well, just to add to that rugged durability. Still super lightweight paddles. And yeah, looking forward to even getting this out in the water to give it a test.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, that's one thing that also really impressed me too, is you talked about the lightweight aspect of it. And I know in the past, what drew me originally to some bent shaft paddles was an experience I had last summer in Temagami with one of my canoe partners who had carbon fiber bent shaft paddle, from I think it was from Raven or one of those brands. And I was really impressed with the lightweight. So when I picked this up for the first time, I was also impressed that yes, it was pretty comparable, very lightweight. I'm no question about the durability, and it's also a piece of art as well. So thanks for telling us more about the design process that goes on with the different options of the paddles. So on average, if it was a similar build to what we saw here, what's the timeline like between when we contact you versus when the finished product we can expect to pick it up? Or
Sure. Yeah, with it, the bent shaft, you're looking definitely at a more specialty style of paddle. There's quite a few pieces of laminated wood within that process. So with that, at this point, stage in the game being springtime and a really busy period here at the paddle shop, I would have to say for something like that, 4 to 6 weeks making time. And then depending on where you're located, if it's within Canada or international, shipping times could vary. But within Canada, it's usually very quick. Internationally, it can definitely take a little bit more time. So yeah, if you're interested, you can get your order in sooner than later for something like that, and yeah, have it by springtime for use. With our regular style paddles that you see here, our classic solid wood, typically I can have this to you in roughly 2 weeks right now. And that's completely made from scratch, from talking to you and discussing with you what your interest would be as far as grip size, shape, shaft size, shape, blade size and shape, etc. And the longest time for the making of a paddle is within the cure time, and making sure that you're giving enough time in between each coat to make sure that it's getting absorbed and doing what it's supposed to do, hardening off in between each coat. So that's the longest point, and that's typically 4 to 5 days of cure time, making the paddles relatively quick. So yeah, I typically say 1 to 2 weeks to get a solid classic canoe paddle in.
thanks, Corey. Yeah, and I think that's totally fair given the craftsmanship and the labor that goes into it for sure. So I guess that's another thing we noted here is that behind you, it's all wood, all natural. So are there any plans to do anything, different maybe with carbon fiber? And what would you say the key advantage is to, going with a different wood as a natural material over something like aluminum, carbon fiber, steel?
Sure. So right off the bat, main difference between wood and your composites is the warmth, the natural feeling, the flex. Again, for traditionalists or classics people out there, the look of wood, that traditional style is preferred. Let me just come right back and I'll grab what I'm looking at carbon shafts that are super lightweight, super rugged and stiff. And then same with some ferrules for our kayaks and stand-up paddle boards. The idea is, again, just to make things more packable and easier to bring around and store. So yeah, the carbon ferrule is an exciting addition to the paddle shop for our kayak paddles. Normally they are just a solid piece of wood with no degree change within that blade. And so with this, it allows you to do, I believe that's a 30 degree or even a 33 degree left and right hand feather that will allow to offset your kayak paddle, which is super handy. And then, yeah, so the idea with the carbon shaft is to potentially make some nice river blades. And that blade is obviously going to be shorter, wider, a little bit more surface area that you can get into a shallower water situation. And with a nice T-grip. Also looking at stand-up paddles for stand-up paddle boarding. Again, just when you're getting into that size for solid wood, it's nice to sometimes get in some composite pieces to help make it a lightweight paddle, something that's just easier to manage for some individuals out there.
Totally great. Thanks. Yeah. And I certainly agree with comments regarding like the more natural feel, definitely the warmth. That's one thing I did notice is, on those rainy or cold days, when you pick up that paddle, the composites, it's pretty clammy and cold. Whereas with wood paddles, feels natural. It's nice and warm, relatively speaking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There is
great.
a little bit more care involved maintenance wise.
For sure.
But these are all made to be easily fixed and repaired even out in the field. And so the finish on majority of the paddles I have are a hemp wood oil. So that in general just will need any oil pieces of wood out there that are in the outdoors are just going to need general upkeep depending on how much use you're going to have with that. So with a wood paddle, there is that side to it, a little bit more maintenance, but you very rarely have someone not wanting to do that because they just enjoy having that paddle in their hands.
What's next for HF Paddle Shop in terms of like you're right now, obviously, kind of a small custom shop, and I know you take some bigger orders. Is there any, future expansion that you're thinking about, or any like difference on the web store, that kind of thing like that? Any social media that you want to, put a shout out for?
The main goal is to get out into the public and be present there. Again, starting to participate with those outdoor shows that are now coming back online with full visitation. And so that's a big part of our strategy is to start getting back out into those scenarios and out into the field, so to say. And like I said, looking into composites as options, expanding the wood choices that we have right now. Our wood choices are fairly local to where we are, which is perfect. Again, keeping things sustainable and close and local. But it would be nice to have some more specialty woods available for those customers that are looking to really customize their pieces. And so, again, the idea is to keep pushing what the idea of a paddle could be, both functionally and artistically.
Thanks. Yeah. And I think that really stands out kind of in the design language of the pieces, especially the ones behind you and the ones behind me. So I really appreciate that. So if someone's interested, they checked out your Instagram or your webpage, that kind of thing, and they want to, get involved with a custom order, maybe talk to you more in general, what's the best way to contact you, and, how do they start that overall process?
Sure. Yeah. Best way to contact me is directly through our website. We've got a great Square Shop website that you can log into, Haliburton Forest paddleshop.com, all one word, lowercase. And you can just start punching in different options and see what's available there. If you have any questions, reach out through phone 705-455-2684, and we can start our conversation there. I love talking to the customer. They're always happy that they're purchasing a paddle. They're, very rarely I'm talking to a crabby individual. It's because they're planning to go on canoe trip and looking forward to it. So being a part of that with them is all very exciting. So beyond the phone, you can give me an email at paddles, plural, PADDLES, at haliburtonforest.com. And we can start the conversation.
Thanks very much. And anybody who's watching the video now, I will have that information as well in the description of the video, so you can check it out there as well. Once again, huge pleasure. Thank you so much, Corey, for allowing us your time out of a busy work schedule to, describe the process, your inspiration, the sustainability and the things that go into making a paddle that basically is going to be used for the rest of our lives. Anybody who's watching, like I said, please check out the description of the video. You'll see all the information. By all means, I do recommend you check out Corey's Instagram page, H.F Paddle Shop on Instagram. That's where I found him, and you'll soon see, what drew me in with the, pieces of art that's hanging up behind me now. So once again, thanks very much for your time, Corey. Wish you all the
You're
best
welcome.
this summer, and maybe I'll see you out there in Temagami.
Okay. Thanks, Darren.
Thanks. Take care.